There's something about graveyards that makes them inherently unsettling, probably because you're staring at your own mortality. Many consider them to be absolutely creepy, so what could be scarier than the average cemetery full of dead bodies? How about a cemetery that holds the remains of several million Parisians found underneath the otherwise beautiful French capital? Paris is hiding one dark secret that feels very out of place for a city that places such a high value on romance, culture and fashion. Today, let's explore the Paris Catacombs that are sure to leave you a little spooked. Number 10. Spooky stories. There are some spooky rumours of disembodied voices luring adventuregoers further into the tunnels, encouraging them to get lost. According to one story, in 2010, cave explorers discovered video footage that claimed to show a man wandering through the dark corridors lost and in a panic. The final shot is of this mysterious man dropping the camera and bolting off into the dark, never to be seen again. However, many people doubt the authenticity of the recording. The footage became so popular that it even inspired a horror movie, As Above, So Below, made in 2014. Even more disturbing is that cultists have been known to steal recently deceased bodies from local morgues before bringing them into the catacombs to perform rituals. With this in mind, if you plan to visit the Catacombs of Paris, I think it's best to stick with an official tour group. The catacombs are also thought to be haunted, with stories of disembodied voices and ghost sightings. Number 9. The remains. Paris developed something of a problem in the 18th century when their cemeteries started running out of space, unable to keep up with the growth of the city. There were also some bodies that weren't buried properly and they were spreading disease. Officials in the city condemned the cemeteries and ordered the remains to be moved elsewhere. They decided on some underground quarries. They managed to organise the movement of over 6 million bodies underground between 1780 and 1814. The bodies were taken from the graveyards of Paris, moved with carts, and then deposited in their ultimate final resting place. Number 8. The size. While the catacombs contains the remains of some 6 million people, most of these bodies are housed within burial chambers called ossuaries, where they have tours for people that are into that kind of thing. The reality is that there are plenty of tunnels surrounding the catacombs that were created by quarry miners in the city before being used as a cemetery. It's estimated that there are around 320 kilometres of tunnels, but they haven't been completely mapped yet and everything else is uncharted territory. Makes you wonder if there might be something else lurking around down there. Number 7. Secret spot. Apparently, some people aren't satisfied with the idea of going to the local swimming pool for a dip. They'd much rather head down into the catacombs and go swimming in some secret and unmapped pool of water that has become an impromptu swimming hole for the cataphiles. Of course, getting somewhere like that would take some connections. It's said that you also need to wade through some murky waters and go down tight into claustrophobic tunnels before finally reaching that blessed oasis. The oasis, in this case, is a swimming hole found in a sprawling underground mass grave. However, I wouldn't want to accidentally swallow any of that water. Number 6. The room. The Parisian police were holding training exercises in the catacombs in 2004 when they found something unexpected. When they were exploring one of the secluded areas of the massive tunnel system, they stumbled upon a cinema room complete with a screen, a restaurant and a bar, and all the equipment necessary to keep everything going. Everything was connected to professionally installed power and phone lines too. It gets stranger. There was also a hidden camera taking photos of the police officers as they entered the macabre cinema. No one knows who is responsible for the room, and a note was discovered at the scene which simply stated, "Do not try and find us." Number 5. The remains. Before the catacombs opened up, L'Innocence was the place to be buried in Paris. L'Innocence was the oldest graveyard in the city, and the one that got the most use. There was just one small problem. It had become somewhat overcrowded by the 18th century, given how many people were buried there. Residents near the cemetery began to complain of the foul odour of death overtaking the city. To say it was overcrowded is an understatement, given that a flood in the city broke the perimeter of the cemetery, causing the bodies buried there to start overflowing and spilling out above the ground. People began exhuming bodies and moving them to the catacombs in the 1780s, and the rest, as they say, is history. Number 4. Communities. Cataphiles is the name given to the urban explorers that spend most of their time exploring the catacombs for fun and a sense of adventure. While it can sound like something of a cult, the cataphiles are very respectful of the tunnels and the dead laid to rest within them. They create their own maps so people don't become lost in the labyrinth. The cataphiles are insiders, and they keep information on how to get into the catacombs close to their collective chest. They have established their own community within the tunnels and quarries for many years now. Some of them furnish rooms and paint art or attend parties with their fellow cataphiles, while others use the tunnels to get away from the outside world for a while. Another strange fact you may not know is that the practice of growing mushrooms in the catacombs began in the 19th century, when Parisian Monsieur Chambéry headed into the tunnels to grow some champignons de Paris, or button mushrooms. The Horticultural Society of Paris soon recognised and accepted the practice. It didn't take long for more farmers to head into the tunnels and start their own mushroom farms. Mushroom farming in the catacombs quickly became a thriving business venture for the farmers. If you know where to look, you might still find some farmers in the tunnels growing all the mushrooms they could ever need. It makes sense if you think about how dark and humid it must be down in the tunnels. Perhaps the old bones in the tunnels acted as a fertiliser for the mushrooms too. Number 3. The HEIST. Outside of decay and death in the tunnels, there's some pretty decent wine to be found in the catacombs if you know where to look. At least there was in 2017, when a French gang of thieves drilled through the limestone catacombs to reach a nearby vault under an apartment. The vault had some 300 bottles of vintage wine, valued at some €250,000, all of which ended up in the hands of the thieves. Number 2. Decorative bones. In the 1780s, the bones from the cemeteries were originally moved by cart into the tunnels after being blessed by a priest to ensure the spirits stayed at rest. Workers started arranging the bones into decorations and shapes like circles and hearts, and they lined the walls of the tunnels with the remains. One iconic display in the catacombs is that of the barrel. The barrel is made up of a large circular pillar surrounded by tibia and skulls. The barrel acts as a support for the roof in the area where it is located, known as the Crypt of the Passion or the Tibia Rotunda. The barrel might be much more macabre and morbid than a traditional support pillar, but it gets the job done. Number 1. The disappearance. In 2017, The Guardian reported that 2 17-year-old teenagers went missing for 3 days after getting lost inside the pitch-black tunnels underground. Luckily, the pair were found thanks to search teams and rescue dogs, and the teenagers were taken to hospital and were treated for hypothermia. The Paris Catacomb tunnels are a vast network of about 150 miles or 250 kilometres of underground tunnels that literally form a maze underneath the streets of Paris. There are many secret entrances to the tunnels which authorities have prohibited since 1955. However, school children and partygoers are known to secretly wander through these forbidden entrances. It is still uncertain how these 2 teenagers got lost and who raised the alarm.